Eye on the prize segment now, and you know what that prize is. It's a Republican majority in the House and the Senate. And there's a lot of conversation, of course, about some of the high-profile Senate races, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Arizona, Nevada. Not a whole lot of conversation about Wisconsin. Now, this is an important race. Senator Ron Johnson, of course, the incumbent Republican, seems to be just a dead man walking every 6 years. They keep telling me, all the smart guys in this town, that he doesn't stand a chance of re-election. So that could be a major Democrat pickup in Wisconsin, or is it not quite going the way the media in this town wants it to go? Let's bring in a man who's forgotten more about Wisconsin politics than I'll ever know. He is, of course, the former governor of Wisconsin, Scott Walker, now the president of Young America's Foundation. Governor Walker, good to talk with you always.
Hey, Larry, thanks for having me on. So glad to be on your show.
Thank you. We're really excited to have you. Hopefully you'll be here a lot more often. I'm not wrong. Everyone tells me, even the Republicans, that know more than anyone else, they show up on CNN, those Republican pundits. They tell me Ron Johnson doesn't stand a chance, and yet somehow he seems to keep doing just fine.
Yeah, earlier this summer, they were writing his obituary just like they were 6 years ago at this time. The bottom line is I knew when they cleared the field, the lieutenant governor here, Mandela Barnes, some people like the governor, Tony Evers, have radical ideas. Mandela Barnes is a radical. He's been a radical for a long time. And we kept saying to Ron and his team, get that message out. And actually clearing the field early helped because it allowed all the attention, not only from the Johnson campaign, but from all the others, myself included, who were focused on this race to point out just how radical Mandela Barnes is on public safety. I mean, this is a guy who literally supported getting rid of cash bail entirely. And we know what happened last year about this time in November. You had a guy out on low cash bail drive his red SUV through the Christmas parade in Waukesha, actually near where my mother lives, and mowed down and killed 6 people. That's the last thing people in Wisconsin want. They're concerned about public safety, and Mandela Barnes is just a radical on that issue.
When I've got to think that the fact that trial, which is just a circus right now, that trial is going on as we speak in the days leading up to the election, that can't help the Democrat candidate either. Mandela Barnes, his track record is coming back to haunt him. So, I mean, how's it looking right now? It still seems, based on the Real Clear Politics average, kind of neck and neck there.
It is close, and there's a ton of money. I mean, every time you turn on TV, there's attack ad after attack ad after attack ad on Ron Johnson. Of course, he's gone through that before. He was attacked brutally back in 2016 by Russ Feingold's campaign and the others, many of whom were Washington-based special interests. But I really believe the more people look at this, and this is part of a pattern we see across the country, public safety has emerged, if not the issue, it probably is one of the top 2 or 3 top issues, along with inflation and public involvement, or parental involvement, I should say, in education. Those are the key issues. And as long as Ron Johnson and his supporters are talking about those things, we're going to win. If they get distracted, and that's what many in the media like to do, they'd like to get off topic and talk about things that most voters really don't care about. But so far, I think Ron Johnson, particularly since the summer, has really been focused on public safety, on parental involvement in education, and particularly on battling inflation and pulling back this excessive federal spending.
What about the all-important governor's race in Wisconsin? It was a hotly contested primary. It didn't get ugly, thank goodness, and it certainly appears, unlike some other states, right after the primary, the Republican Party, I mean, you tell me, but it appears that they coalesced behind their nominee.
Yeah, the bottom line, people know that Tony Evers, again, he's kind of the Biden before Biden. He perfected the basement strategy 4 years ago. He's hardly ever seen around the state. He's really kept undercover, but he embraces these same sort of radical ideas that Mandela Barnes has been aligned with. And so he's really been a very ineffective governor. Thank God there's Republican majorities in both the state assembly and the state senate. We turned that around when I came in as governor, and that's really helped. It's protected him. But, this should be a good year for Republicans, not only nationally, but it's been 32 years since someone won the race for governor when their party was in the White House. Similarly, actually, in that Senate seat that Ron Johnson has, it's been since 1998 since that's happened. And so this should be a good year. But Tony Evers is outspending Tim Michels, the Republican candidate, by more than 2 to 1. And that's because of all these coastal elites in Hollywood and New York and D.C. and elsewhere pouring money in hopes that this will keep Donald Trump from coming back and winning Wisconsin. I think in the end it's tight, but I believe Michaels can win.
Well, speaking of the presidential electoral college race in Wisconsin, I know that you were quite concerned about the way certain voting districts in Wisconsin played out in 2020, especially after you instilled as governor and with your state legislature some really good voter integrity bills and laws. Has anything changed since 2020? Are you feeling a little bit better about Wisconsin's path forward with regard to voter integrity?
Well, I think all the attention helped. The laws are solid, unlike some states that have weak laws. I mean, I signed photo ID into law. We put other provisions in that make it easy to vote but hard to cheat. The problem in 2020 is many of those laws in the two largest counties, Dane County, where the state capital is at, and Milwaukee County, of course, the largest county in the state. Those two counties, controlled by Democrats, even with Democrats in charge, the district attorney's office, basically just bypassed the law. They handed out absentee ballots, which is not legal under the state statute. You actually have to ask for them in writing. They didn't do the process right in many other cases in terms of filling in names and addresses. I hope the scrutiny, and now there's a concerted effort, both at the state level and even in conjunction with the RNC, to come in and bring election observers, many of whom are trained attorneys, to make sure they're actually following the statutes. Because, Larry, as you know, it's almost impossible to deal with election integrity issues after the election.
Oh, yes, we've seen that.
It's like spit in the ocean. You got to deal with them up front, and I think they're well equipped to do that.
Great. Let's shift gears a little bit to your new life now. No longer governor of Wisconsin. You're now the president of Young America's Foundation, which is such a dynamic organization that really does ensure that conservative ideas are heard somewhere on college and high school campuses. And I've got to say, I've seen you in action, Governor Walker, because I have a soft spot in my heart for YAF. You have really put this organization on a fast track, and you're very aggressive right now to make sure that this next generation embraces the Reagan principles that you and I grew up with.
Absolutely. YAF.org, YAF.org, if people are interested. And what we do is simple. We help train the next generation of leaders in the fight for freedom. It started at WMAL Buckley's home in the 1960s with college students. Ronald Reagan was one of the earliest supporters, and that's why we embrace his legacy. It continued into the high school back nearly a quarter century ago. And this year, we've been expanded into middle school programs. We have them at the Reagan Ranch, the Reagan Boyd Home in Washington, Virginia, but also all across the nation. We have the largest conservative lecture series. We just having Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, Matt Walsh, who's on fire.
Yeah.
He was just at a number of our campuses. We're excited about the things that are happening, but we know, as you know, Larry, we've got to break through the cancel culture on many of these campuses where it's not even just the bias. It's they don't even let conservative voices, be it a speaker, a professor, certainly a student, be heard. And so that's our foremost fight. We're partnering with other conservative organizations. And we're going to win this battle because we have the truth on our side.
Well, I think it's so important, though, also for our viewers to know, because they're constantly saying, you know, what about the next generation? Where are the young conservatives? Where are the way? You just named some very important voices. Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, Matt Walsh, me sometimes. You bring us to those kids, or you bring the kids either at the Reagan Ranch or here in D.C. You bring them and connect us all together. And that's what's keeping these conversations alive. And you've done a great job harnessing new media and your YouTube channel as well.
Well, Larry, and you're a great example. You know what it's like. Our speakers, including you, do a fabulous job of not only coming in lecturing on campus or at a conference, but spending at least half, if not more of the time, taking questions. And
yeah.
I got to tell you, that's the exciting part, because students, when they come to conferences, as you've seen, the biggest thing they recognize is they're not alone. They're meant to feel intimidated on campus. They realize, no, there's other young people that feel like me. But on campus is what we saw. Ben Shapiro's a good example. He routinely draws 2,000 to 3,000 students. But then we broadcast that both on our YouTube channel, YAF TV, and on things like the Daily Wire's broadcast network. Ben Shapiro routinely will pull 7-8 million viewers on top of the people in person. So we're really making a difference. And what we find, and you see this, Larry, is college students are neither conservative nor liberal. Most are just living their lives like most voters.
Yep.
And they just want to hear the truth. They want to hear what's going on. And so the more we can bring that right to them on campus and on their phone or tablet, the more we're going to make inroads.
Yeah, they're thirsty for new ideas, and sadly, all they're hearing is the same old tired Marxist ideas that we've been hearing for decades. It's a great thing to watch over at YAF.org. Governor Scott Walker, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
There's more to come on O'Connor Tonight.